So we are live on Facebook and YouTube. What we want to talk about today is how do you change the belief that other people hold about you? How do you get them to see that you're not the old you? You've actually shifted. You've changed your behavior in some ways. You've got Jared Jones, Russ Hill from Partners in Leadership. We do this live on Facebook and YouTube a couple times a week. And Jared, why don't we dive into the topic? There's a reason this is on my mind, but it's not something that we're not accustomed to coaching leaders on, right? It comes up all the time.
All the time. You know, when you think about leaders who say, well, why do they think that way? Like we hear that question all the time. We share feedback with the leader and they ask that question, why do they think that way? The answer is they think that way for a reason. No one's making stuff up. Your teams are not doing or thinking the way they're thinking by accident. They have an experience that they're pointing to or thinking of. Sometimes that experience is a story that they've heard, but stories are powerful third-party experiences. It's not, you don't have to have everything personally yourself. So if it resonates with any other experiences you've had and you hear a story, it becomes just as real. But you also do have firsthand experiences that actually tell you how to think, that give you beliefs about how things should or are working, right?
Or how that leader operates, right? So what I hear you saying there, Jared, is people will tell stories about the way you lead or the way your department shows up. But the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because it gets frustrating in relationships. I mean, this is a personal issue as well as a business or professional situation where people will define you or they hold beliefs about you that you're thinking, wait, that was me 4 years ago, not me now. Why are you still defining me? Or
let's tell the story about the leader you were just on the phone with the other day.
So this came up just a couple of days ago, you all, in a coaching call with one of our clients. So this is a large global organization. I'm going to protect the innocent. And so what I'll basically say is it was a senior leader. And I was doing a coaching call with him. And before this latest coaching call, I checked in with the CEO. And I said, and we talked about numerous topics, but one of them was this leader. And I said, give me some insight. How you feeling about this leader? And so he shared a few beliefs. This person is this person is that, this person is that. And some of them were strengths, right? There was appreciative feedback, and then there was some constructive feedback in there. So I get on the phone with the senior leader. I'm like, okay, well, let's go through this feedback. I share the first belief that the CEO holds, and the senior leader says to me, oh, that feels outdated, Russ. Like, oh, really? He said that? He said that? That feels like, yeah, that was me 2 years ago. And then I go to item number 2.
There's an expiration date on that belief. Didn't you know that?
I got item number 2 on the list. I'm like, well, the CEO said, you do this. And he's like, well, really? Because that feels outdated. He kept using that word, outdated. And I'm thinking, and it's real, right? So for him, it was frustrating. Like, man, how can he still view me that way when I've been showing up differently? So, Jared,
you're on the phone with these other people. You're hearing these beliefs. They're telling you these beliefs. You hear it. We do this every time we talk to teams or leaders where we hear these things and we can feel the genuine authenticity that's coming out in that conversation. Yet these other people are going, what? No, that's not the way it is.
That's not us. That's not me.
Right. So you're sitting here going, wait a minute, you've got to acknowledge that that's reality at this point. It's not, people's perceptions are their reality. You've heard that statement for years. We all have, but it is so true. Once people hold beliefs, they're going to act on them, period. End of discussion. Doesn't matter if it's right, wrong, indifferent. They're just going to act on the things they think right now. So
they hold the belief from those experiences, right? And so was that leader that I was on the phone with, did that senior executive used to show up that way? Of course he did. He acknowledged that. That's the way I used to lead, but that's not who I am anymore. So we hold on to, this is the biggest challenge for most relationships, personal and professional, is we form those beliefs based off of real experiences, and then we hold on to them. So Jared, share the coaching we often give leaders around, well, how do you change that then?
So the belief bias thing that you're talking about, belief bias, we get held hostage to the past based on belief bias, something that's been created from years ago or even a week ago. People then start to validate that belief by looking for the experiences that actually do validate it. And we all create some experience that validates some of those old beliefs at some level. We're not all perfect at doing this, right? So the problem is you've got to get people to not look at those little one-offs that you create, but look at the vast majority of the right experiences.
See the change, see the shift that you've made.
Right.
They aren't going to see it just because you're doing it. You've got to draw attention to it.
That's right. You've got to put a spotlight on those new experiences. Otherwise, they're going to keep seeing the old one. And so, a personal life example of this, my wife came to me not too long ago. She said, "You're not listening very well to me." And I'm sure I'm the only person on the planet who's ever heard that statement, right? Shocking. And so that's my wife's belief in that moment. She's telling me that. I've earned that belief somehow. I've created some experience that has led to her holding that belief. I can't just tell her that it's going to be different from now on. I have to actually do something different. But once I start doing it different, I have to bring attention to it. So we started doing a little inside joke thing. We'd say, "Hey, you see me doing it, right?" And she would laugh and say, "Oh yeah, I see you doing it." Because I told her I was going to restate and answer some questions and make comments while she was talking.
Active listening, right?
Right. And so I said, so when that would happen, I'd say, "Hey, you see me doing it, right?" And she'd laugh and say, "Oh yeah, I see you doing it." But it was putting a spotlight on that experience so she couldn't miss what I was trying to do in that moment and getting credit for the work I was trying to do in changing that experience and that belief.
Yeah.
So you got to do that. You got to put a spotlight on it.
Yeah. The challenge, you all, is, and it's just like this senior leader who I was on the phone with earlier this week, where we're creating new experiences. We're innovating, we're adjusting, we're changing as human beings all the time, right? Hopefully we are. Otherwise, that's another Facebook, YouTube Live that we need to dive into. So we're showing up differently. But then one of the things that we get so frustrated by in our relationships and in our leadership roles and organizations is, why can't they see that our department's no longer that way? Yeah. Why can't they see that I am a better listener, Jared, to your point, or I'm collaborating, or we're on time now, we're meeting deadlines, or I'm showing up for meetings, whatever it is. So the takeaway, you all, from this, what we've learned from lots of years of experience dealing with this problem, this issue with leaders, is you bring attention to the new experience. So what does that senior leader do? Here's what I coached him to do. I said, go to the CEO, and in your next one-on-one with him, share with you how you want him to view you. Give him 2 or 3 beliefs that you want him to hold about you. And then tell him, I want you to view me this way, and here's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and then get feedback from him.
Russ, just let me step in there.
Please.
What you said is so important. The reason why you need to describe the new experience is because right now their brain is trained on looking for the old experience. So until you have the conversation you just described with the individual, they're going to keep looking for the old experience. So once you have you have the conversation around the new experience, now they at least recognize, right, oh, that's what I'm looking for now. And when they point it out, or you point it out, you can say, oh, remember we talked about that.
Well, the other reason, Jared, to have that conversation, the reason I was coaching him to go do that, you're sharing the main point, which is absolutely right. The other one is that CEO might say to him, well, actually, that's not the belief that's most important for me to have right now. It's this. And then that leader, that senior executive, would have spent 3 or 6 months going to try to get the CEO to shift his belief on something when the CEO didn't even care about that.
Yeah, not even that important.
He's looking for something else. So you share that, whether it's a spouse or a boss or an employee or a peer or a customer, that you have that conversation with, you share, hey, I sense you hold this belief about me. I want you to hold that belief. Here's what I'm going to do to change it, and let them give you feedback. And then the last thing you do is you ask for check-ins for additional feedback along the way. When you see me slipping into not being collaborative, not carrying my weight, not being on time, whatever it is, the old belief, when you see me slipping into that, will you call it out? Because I need to see that. I need your help in seeing that when I do it. That what that does for people, for that CEO, what do you think the belief is that he's going to hold about that senior executive?
That he's serious about working on who he is and being a better leader.
He's committed to it.
Yeah.
He listened to the feedback that I shared, and it carried a ton of weight with him. And he is actively working on shifting.
And there's a degree of humility in that conversation that you demonstrate when you do it, which endears people to you when you can say, yeah, I need to work on this. Here's what I'm doing. And you've actually put thought into what you need to be doing differently. It demonstrates all of that when you've got that right. It's powerful. It's powerful language. It's powerful coaching.
One of the biggest challenges you always see in organization after organization that we consult at Partners in Leadership, that our firm goes out and consults, is this frustration that people at all levels of organizations, I don't care what the industry is, or people don't feel like anyone's listening.
Yeah.
And the reason they don't feel like anyone's listening, one of the reasons is they're not seeing changes happening because of what they're saying, the ideas they're offering, the feedback they're sharing. So when you go and you share like that, at senior executive, when he shares with the CEO, hey, I'm working on this. Are these the right things? I heard your feedback and I want you to hold a different belief. That CEO goes, wow, he's listening. He's hearing me. And so the more that in your culture, people feel heard and listened to, the more you collaborate, the more walls and silos come down, the faster the organization can go speed to market, because we're collaborating and working together in a whole different way. So that's one of the reasons we want to talk about this today. It's very real, especially in this moment of COVID-19 and all the disruption that all of us are experiencing.
Absolutely. Totally agree. If you can manage these relationships and these communications, you can manage culture. That's the essence of culture change, is getting to the belief and experience layer of what's happening with teams or individuals or organizations.
That's what we spend our living doing at Partners in Leadership. We're part of the team at the firm. We help organizations shift their culture, manage their culture to accelerate achieving results. You can find out more about the firm at partnersinleadership.com. All right, we'll see you all again Friday for a Facebook, YouTube Live. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.